Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Monday, November 10th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the state of California. After Proposition 50 passed on Tuesday's election, we saw that the state of California was set into a complete frenzy around new congressional boundaries and who was going to be representing who after the new map was implemented, ushering in 5 new Democratic seats going into the 2026 midterm elections. For a bit of context, the state of California right now currently has 9 representatives in Congress from the Republican Party, 43 on the Democratic side in the House, and 2 U.S. senators from the Democratic Party. And so California is a state that does have, pretty entrenched Democratic history. Democrats have really dominated in the state as of late in the 21st century. Republicans have won just very few statewide elections, and that has only been under extremely and extenuating circumstances. And on Tuesday's election, we saw Democrats usher in yet again another victory across the state. Except this time, it has severe national implications for the Republican Party. And so what essentially the Democratic Party did was, in response to Texas changing their maps, ushering out 5 Democratic seats, ranging from members like Julie Johnson and Henry Cuellar, all across the state, the map was made to make it so Republicans would undoubtedly gain at least 5 seats in the state of Texas. So, of course, Gavin Newsom and the Democratic Party worked together to do the exact opposite in the state of California. And without any type of actual changing of the boundaries here, it will look pretty substantively different. But just visually speaking, what the Democratic Party did here was take the 5 Republican seats and draw them to be safe for the Democratic Party, reducing down Republican representation across the state to 4 safe seats for the GOP that they would have to contest in 2026, and leaving those 5 Republican seats back to the Democrats and ushering in new Democratic representatives from those districts. And so, as it is standard with any type of congressional redraw, oftentimes this happens after a census. A great example is in a state like Illinois, where in 2020, there were 5 U.S. representatives from the Republican Party. Kinzinger, who ended up leaving Congress, Mary Miller, Rodney Davis, etc., right? The point and the reason why I bring it up, though, is that 2 years later, the Democrats redrew the boundaries here. Illinois lost a congressional district. And so instead of taking one of their own, the Democrats not only took away one from the GOP, but also drew out an additional district to be for the Democratic Party. And thus ensued a primary. In Illinois' 15th congressional district, Rodney Davis and Mary Miller ran against each other in the primary. In this primary, Donald Trump endorsed Mary Miller and said, "I want her." And in the primary results, Mary Miller defeated Rodney Davis. The reason I bring it up is because it was a Republican incumbent on Republican incumbent primary. That if Illinois had maintained its maps, would have no reason to run against each other. And Mary Miller, who came from this side of Illinois, felt compelled to run in this new district, not because there was much overlap, but rather because the number of districts here were reduced on the GOP side. This is now happening in California. The Republican seats that existed have now been whittled down to very, very few. And it's resulting in Republicans already who said, "I'm not leaving Congress," to make that decision to run against each other. And you best believe it is going to tear them apart. California so far has already seen that 2 Republicans have already made the decision to run against each other. And so what you are going to find is that the resources that might historically have been spent in California, which has, and did, maybe not anymore, had a number of toss-up districts that will no longer in 2026. Looking at the races here, looking at what the Republicans are set to do, rather than spend that money on trying to win a general, they will now be spending the millions they've raised to run in the primary up against each other. It has gotten so far and so extreme that Kevin Kiley, who's an incumbent congressman, says that he might run for Congress in 6 different districts. He's so desperate to find a district that fits him that he's considering 2 Democratic districts and all 4 Republican districts. Even as he does find, you can find on the map here, in terms of where he represents, let's find his actual district. I'm not the best with geography, but this is the district here that he represents. Undoubtedly, some of the new Republican districts represent California's 3rd. But the point is that these new maps here do stretch alongside across California. And so because he can't find a clear-cut district to go to or a great place to run, he is openly telling the press, hey, wait a second, I need more time because I'm choosing between 6 districts. This goes to show exactly the effectiveness of Gavin Newsom's plan in effect. How, and that's redundant, but you know what I'm saying. The brilliance to a degree of how this new redistricting fiasco for the Republicans has thrown them into a frenzy and a scramble, and one that the Democratic Party does not need to share. Because in 2024, the amount of money spent on these House races, many of them very competitive, ranged into the hundreds of millions of dollars across all of them. And a big reason why this new map not only benefits the Democrats by axing out some of these Republican districts, but also by making those Democratic districts that were previously toss-ups, where you had races, for instance, like Adam Gray, who won by 0.089%, who would have certainly had a competitive reelect, may no longer, right? He'll still have, this is his new district is Harris +1, but he outruns the top of the ticket. And looking at the last election, when we take a look at California's 13th district, I want to actually take a look. The incumbent here was a Republican, so it's very possible that Harris outperforms, but she did not. She lost the district by 5. The new district is about 6 points more liberal, meaning that this narrow margin seems to suggest it'll probably be even more for the Democrats. But the point is that the Republican Party is certainly in this frenzy, and it absolutely is notable. It shows that Republicans who, right now are trying to figure out, okay, wait a second, what does this new map actually do? Well, it shows that Republicans have become certainly vulnerable. Kevin Kiley is one of those Republicans to name who might be looking to abandon the district that he now has. Why? Because the district that he was in was one of the first ones being targeted by the Democrats. He begged and pleaded with the Democratic Party to not go against him, went everywhere from Fox News to News Nation to CNN to try to make the argument that this should not be passed, but he had no comment, coincidentally. Just so happens he has no comment about what's happening in Texas because he doesn't want to turn off his own voters. But the inconsistency was apparent, and the voters punished that behavior. They punished the Republicans who look at this and say, I'm fine with what goes on in Texas as long as it doesn't impact me in my state when the Democrats try to fight back. And I think to a degree, right, the reason why Kevin Kiley and some of these other Democrats, why these other Republicans were targeted by the Democrats was, one, already they came from districts that you could find ways to make them more liberal. Kevin Kiley already came from a toss-up district. Valadao is being targeted too. Ken Calvert is looking to swing districts. Young Kim as well. And they're actually going to run against each other because there's now one district down here. I mean, either way, and Darrell Issa has already swung from district to district. You know that if you know the lore. The point is, though, that the Republicans are now going to be the ones who are forced to make this decision as to what they're going to do. And in terms of what is actually changing in the map here, it's just not great for the GOP. Democrats are eyeing these 2 other seats here, which they say, they're not reconfigured quite as radically. But they absolutely are more competitive, right? Looking at it and what we've seen is that these districts are being built on purpose to be made more liberal, right? And now vulnerable Democrats can breathe easier. They can be drawn in a way that makes them say, all right, instead of being up 1 on election day, and maybe I'll win, you're up 10. And it would take a red wave to oust you, which 2026 certainly is not shaping up to be. And so I think that this is why, Prop 50 was set to pass even in the first place and at its foundation, because the Democrats knew what havoc this would wreak on the Republican Party. They knew what it would do to a political party that has, arguably not the best political instincts. Oftentimes is of their eat their own mentality, and Democrats do that too. But in a midterm cycle where Democrats are set to already gain control of the House, this obviously doesn't help. California voters approving this new map and helping the Democratic Party, well, that means a lot. Because it isn't just a change of 1 or 2 seats like the Republicans are able to get in Missouri or North Carolina. It's a massive change. And it's one that is going to usher in a new wave of Democratic leadership in California and also set the standard for many Democratic states in terms of their resistance against the President of the United States. And so Prop 50, Republicans now leading into what is going to be a full-out civil war between them as 9 Republicans scramble to run against each other for 4 seats. It's really going to be an exceptionally bad place to be for the California GOP, and that just is by the nature of what primary elections are. Because these races were all cut out for the 9, right? In 2022, there were actually 12 Republicans, and in 2016, there were 14. So the Republican delegation has gone down, down, down. In 2018, actually, Republicans did very poorly. Democrats came within, whittling down the Republican seats down to 6. And then in 2020, they won some of those seats back. In 22, they expanded. Then, of course, in 2024, partisan realignment, Democrats start to do better, yada, yada, yada. You know the gist. But the point is here that where we are right now is a product of Prop 50 passing and exactly what Gavin Newsom wanted. Republicans in disarray, Donald Trump not knowing who to endorse, and all of these moderate Republicans now having to hardline on the conservative side that even in future bids, they would become unrecognizable from where they are today. And that's a good thing for the Democrats because it puts the Republicans in such an unfortunate position that they can't really maneuver their way out of this. This election is spoken for. The 2026 midterms will no doubt, in my mind, usher in Democrats gaining 5 seats in California. And I think that's the point. That's the exact reason why Newsom did what he did. And I can't act like this is not part of some grand plan here to further decrease the political capital and the political power of Republicans in California. But it is no doubt in my mind as to why that is why Greg Abbott does this to the Democrats in Texas and the Republicans to the Democrats in North Carolina and Missouri are looking to do it in Indiana and so on and so forth. Because after all, this is the political game of today's day and age. It's just historically, Republicans were the only ones willing to play it. And now the Democrats are fighting back. They're pushing against the incumbent Republicans in a dramatic way. And it's already causing a lot of strife, a lot of turmoil in a political party that largely felt at the beginning of Proposition 50 being proposed that they might actually survive it. And after losing by such a deafening margin, they certainly know that's not going to be the case. And if anything, it foretells what might happen in 2026. Which is likely going to be Democratic pickups all across the state, all across the country, and Republicans in California will be powerless to stop it. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026 House election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.